Clubhouse right now, and I do X, not because I have a following over here, most of it's bots, but because of the nature of my discussions. So I'm going live, front camera here, side camera here, and they don't see it on this camera, but I stim. So today for my stimming friend, I have a stimming friend, a little dinosaur, and then I have a ring that's pretty much broken. And I was like, oh, I need to go get this fixed. And then I put it on, I have like a little gratitude altar in like cinnamon oil. And then it just fused itself. Here, I'll show them here. It fused its turquoise. I don't remember where I got this. I don't know if I got this in Santa Fe or not. I'm very like, I don't like get a lot of stones or anything like that. I only have a few things I keep, but I like how it fused because there's like a moon there. So I hold these because I stim, and you can see it on Twitter. You can't see it anywhere else. And so you're going to watch me stim on Twitter. I don't care anymore. Because otherwise I'll be like doing this the whole time, and it's just no bueno. Not cool. So I know that you can hear music on Twitter, and if there's like a weird sound impression on StreamYard, I guess it cuts out that I play anything. So I did like a local commissioner board hearing on StreamYard, and it cut out all the sound, and if I play music, it's cutting it out. So I have to keep music going. So that's why also, if you want to watch my X live stream, I will always link it because it's it's as real as it gets. And I generally think there is like suppression on all the apps right now. I've definitely noticed it on TikTok with every creator. So like there are live creators that are being suppressed on TikTok. I'm a TikTok girly, and the fact that it got bought by Larry Ellison and then that switched over definitely is apparent on that app. So, I am an intuitive, and I felt a call to get back on X, and I had my account disabled for I guess like a year and a half, because it was just getting really sad on X. So I'm on it now because I feel called to be on X, and all of my media has always been kept really low. I used to think that was a problem. I used to think like, oh, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not smart enough, blah blah blah, right? But now I kind of realize it's like it's systemic, and media does support certain people it doesn't, and I'm just gonna keep creating because I'm getting a lot of confirmations that things over the years I've been calling out and saying are actually correct and actually happening in real time. So I used to think, oh my God, I'm so down, I'm not part of the popular. This is like really, it's popular kids, right? It's the jocks, it's the people associated with all these people. So it's just exactly what we came up with. It's just socialization, whatever, humanity, all these things. But it's okay. And if you're somebody who is finding that your voice is being suppressed, like this is a testament to just keep going, because obviously there's a reason for it, and obviously like you're on to something. I think I saw a really cool TikTok. I don't remember the creator's name, and this is why I love TikTok so much. This girl is a painter, and she was like, I was gonna take this really draining 9-to-5 job and stop painting. And then she just got the call in her being to keep painting. And then one day it just hit. And so I was doing live streams really consistently up until the 20th of February, 2021. And I was even live streaming my sets because I was going on the road for stand-up. And I got into a really bad car accident. And that was a near-death experience called an NDE for me, and I have it in my notes, and that is not how I was going to talk about what I had I wrote a note because I was listening to Jamie C's like business tips for intuitives, and I just wrote, keep telling my story. 2/28/2025 or 2/28/2026 is my 5-year anniversary of my almost alpine divorce from this planet, Medicine Bow, Wyoming. And whether it was an angelic being or a higher self keeping me here on planet Earth, I still learned a lot. So, stand-up comedy is hard because when you start it, like there's so much indoctrination, it's almost like a religion. And so I was like deep in it. I started in New York City at a place called Eastville Comedy Club. At the time, it's now one of this, I think it's like the second, it's like New York Comedy Club has a couple of different locations and it's one of their comedy club locations now, but Eastville has now moved to Brooklyn, New York. And then I left my job officially in science research. I was a researcher at Columbia University Medical Center. I had a lot of questions that came up because I was doing epigenetic research. And we were looking into COPD, emphysema, interstitial lung disease, and other lung diseases. And it was like epigenetics of certain populations in New York City. So specifically, Columbia University is located in a very Latin and Hispanic community historically, which is called Washington Heights. It's specifically Dominican and Puerto Rican. And so much of our studies were centered around Black and African American genetics, as well epigenetics, which is like the memory of the lineage in genetics, as well as Latin and Hispanic roots. And so one of the things I did at this job, and I have other videos about this, but I guess this is part of my story. And one of the things that I did, I started out as a lab researcher, just regular lab researcher. A lot of these studies are under contract, so when contracts end, you're like laid off from the university until they can place you into another space, pick you up somewhere else, etc. So when that grant funding ends, they keep who they need to keep, and then they move other people to different places. So when my grant funding ended, I was actually living at a tiny little apartment in Harlem, right next to a very, very famous Baptist church called the Abyssinian Baptist Church. And they are known, world-renowned Baptist choir. And I just happened to at the time, rents in New York City are way different now, but I was able to rent that apartment for I think under $850 a month, which is unheard of. It was things were falling apart. The toilet, you had to straddle it. It would tip to the side, and it was just, I love New York City. I've learned a lot from New York City. There's still things in New York City that I miss to this day. And it was my first big girl apartment. But during that time when we were going through layoffs at Columbia University, I just happened to, I was also going through pelvic floor physical therapy because I was experiencing extremely bad pelvic pain. I would be in lab doing blood work, and when they ask you the pain scale, my pain scale was 11 out of 10, just shooting pain through my body. I had already had ovarian cyst surgery a couple years prior, and they found this ovarian cyst that was, they said, the size of a grapefruit that had twisted around my ovary, and they were able to save both of my ovaries. It was saved, my fallopian tube, everything was saved. But I do have scarring, and I did have complications. A lot of it had to do with pelvic pain. So that is not what I came in here to talk about. I came here to talk about Bill Gates' chart, but here we are. So part of that was learning to live with the pelvic pain. And a lot of pelvic floor issues for women and for men are not covered by insurance for physical therapy. There's actually pelvic floor specialists in physical therapy, and it's a lot of women that generally just gave birth, that have tearing, that often have to get this special physical therapy. So I'm bringing that up. I have a couple videos about this from years, but again, like my media, like if I get 100 views on something, I'm very lucky. So I've kind of stepped back from stand-up comedy because even though it was like a huge calling for me and a really, because they say like the pelvic floor is linked to the throat chakra. And so a lot of people who are abused also have throat and pelvic pain, pelvic issues. So a lot of these issues are linked to like mind body somatic therapy. And so my experience of it is unique, but also not unique. It's pretty much part of this whole situation. So I'll just kind of leave it here for now. I'll kind of keep telling the story, but ultimately, February 28th is my 5-year anniversary of my NDE. And fast forward to going from scientific research, I entered stand up comedy and I'm a perfectionist. So, like, I failed big time, right? I used to be like a top achieving student, straight A student, went to an okay school, was trying to get into Columbia, was faced with a lot of tough issues with that school, but I was able to get into one of their graduate classes, hopefully with the idea at the time of getting a master's or a PhD from that school, paid for by the school. I just kept getting faced with like blocks from the school itself. Like they tried to charge me for the one graduate class that I took that I excelled in. I think it was an A. I did really well. I was like, why are they making me feel so stupid? And they tried to charge me. And luckily, at the time, I was in a union, and my union fought for me to not have to pay for any of their classes, which was part of my agreement going into working for the university itself. So yeah, there's a lot of nepotism with these Ivy League schools, of course. And there's also like they don't want certain people educated there. It just, and it's not like unique to me. It's just something I experienced, which is what got me into stand up because I didn't know how to stand up for myself properly. And that's like one of the first experiences I had where a union really helped. And then I entered stand up comedy, which is self regulated. And it's a system that is very, very still in the boys' club. And if any male comedians listen to this, no, you're not, you're just a feminist saying your thing. It's like, no, 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 I promise you. I promise you. There's just so many stories. And I was a stand-up comic for a long time. I chose to like stay in more like off the off the mainstream. Like I tried to stay away from clubs. Once I realized that clubs were like not for truth telling, they were for like the buddy system. So a lot of these people that made it in comedy that are like in your ear when you're walking your dog, or in your ear when you're driving to work, or in your ear if you're in a job that you can listen to podcasts all day. I kind of feel like it's become a mantra or people's truth. So I'm kind of like, that's what I'm doing these live streams again, is because I realized 5 years after my near-death experience that when I called it my own personal alpine divorce, it was almost like my alpine divorce from the mainstream pursuit of stand-up. I tried a little bit, and I had to kind of give myself a whole year in Los Angeles to really grieve my dream. Because what I realized is, like those big comedy clubs that we all were sold on, and all these big people that were all told are like the greatest in the world, I realized like actually they're hotbeds for a lot of exactly what's going on right now. They're hotbeds for these types of individuals. And I'm not saying every comedian is like this, but it's a system, right? And right now we're watching systems shift and change. And I didn't bring my tarot cards today. Like when I went into this live stream, I really felt like this is whatever is gonna need to be said will be said, and whoever needs to hear this will hear this at whatever time. So there could be like 0 people that watch this, or like 2 people, or 2 bots. But for some reason, I'm being like led to do these live streams. And like, there's definitely things in my career that I could have done, and tracks that I could have taken to that would have probably been more, financially gaining. But for me, I have a strict, like, if something doesn't feel right, my body will scream at me. And if I don't listen, I will get sick, which is what, like, I think all of my health issues were with, like, ovarian cyst and endometriosis, and just having pelvic floor pain, and learning to, I just thought it was just part of my life to be in that much physical pain. And I'm having like that kind of issue now, kind of resurfaced, but not with pelvis. It's with my, like, I'm having what I feel is like myofascial issues. And I do think a lot of people are going through that right now, mainly because of what's going on the planet. So I do think that the myofascial issues I'm having are not unique to me. And I think it has to do with stored trauma in the myofascial, like, channel, I guess, like their little muscle structures in the body right now. So it's a spiritual thing I think a lot of people are feeling. And so I came here actually to do astrology. And today I was really obsessed with, just when I woke up, I was like, I just like let myself write and let myself like kind of channel. And one of the channelings that I had was with Henrietta Lacks, because I saw a post about, and it's actually on my X account. Let's see if I can go to it. So I'm going to read that from my X account. Hopefully it'll still let me live. But I wrote on my X today about Henrietta Lacks. And this is prompted by an article, and this article was at WUSA 9 about an ICE facility worker saw people laying in feces at the Baltimore Detention Center. Now, they're seeing people laying in feces. There's somebody, they had to put diapers on women and who had their period. And so I wrote this based on my personal experiences. I said, I used to work at 2 different primate research facilities, one in downtown Baltimore and another in a small country mountain town in a place called Poolesville, Maryland. And that was a previous quarantine facility for the National Institutes of Health, the NIH. And so based on our SOPs there, we have something called an IACUC, which in human research is called an IRB, which are basically like review ethics boards. So before you go into like any research studies, you actually have to have like review boards, go through all your procedures, how many, like it's down to like how many animal cages do you have, or how many research subjects do you have? What are you feeding these animals? Where's the water resources? Like if you have any research subject animals, they have to have reverse osmosis water. And I think in all, I don't know if it's all, but at least in the research facilities that I had, because you don't want any outliers of polluted water, so you have literally a special water for these animals. And so the fact that like these detainees in Baltimore, which is at Hopkins Plaza, which is like so close to where I used to do research. I used to do research at the University of Maryland in Baltimore, which is right next to the Baltimore Harbor. It's like super, you could walk to Baltimore Harbor right there. So to me, it's like, wait, that's where my red flag spidey sense goes up and goes, why are they treating humans like not even like animal, like when people use the term like animals, it's like, no, we treated animals with with a committee hearing, and we did something called GLP, which is Good Laboratory Practices, which is utilized across the board under federal regulations. So there's inspections and there's audit inspections. Like you can't even sign your name improperly without getting cited sometimes in these types of labs. So it's like, how is it that just a couple of maybe a mile and a half away, there's a regulatory lab that's treating like animals better than they're treating people? I'm not saying don't treat animals. Like, I love animals, and when I worked in like these labs, I was such an ethical, and like that's why I left science research, because it was of the ethics of it in general. And I saw some things at certain facilities that like I'll never be the same with the PTSD that I lived from it, because of things that are done there under ethical standards. So to me, like, that raises a red flag, because it's like, what are they doing? Like, what is this all about? So it got me thinking, and I wrote this on my ex, that, let me see, I said, for example, like, there's a lady named Henrietta Lacks, and there's a book called Medical Apartheid. I don't remember the author of that book. Medical Apartheid is written by Harriet A. Washington. Medical Apartheid, the Dark History of Medical Experimentation on Black Americans from Colonial Times to the Present. So it got me thinking about Miss Henrietta Lacks, and I'm only going to talk about this very briefly, but she had a proliferated cell line that just kept proliferating, and she had ovarian cancer, and basically researchers took all her genetic cell lines, and it led to the creation of many things, including medications and other medical treatments for people well after her death. And it wasn't even settled until 2021. So her name was Henrietta Lacks. She's originally from Roanoke, Virginia, I think also Clover, Virginia. And it was her cell line used for these research studies, and it was a settlement in 2021 through Thermo Fisher Scientific. So this is where like it gets like weird, like synchronicity. And so I've always looked at synchronicity as like, when things are synchronistic, that this is you're on to something. I briefly worked for Thermo Fisher in 2021. And this was a time after my car accident. So I had my car accident on February 28th, and I was hired like very quickly by Thermo Fisher, because I was basically living in my car and like traveling around the country doing stand-up, because it was 2020 and 2021. I was being like socially distant. I also had my own reserves about what was going on based on all the research I had done in the past. And so I wore like a mask, and I used like wipes and things like that. And I only went to bars and clubs to do stand-up that were basically in red states like Wyoming, Oklahoma, Texas, Arizona, all these states that were still open. And people had the choice to go and watch stand-up or not. And we were generally socially distant. A lot of the shows were outside, except for Utah and Wyoming, where they did not give a F. So I think I did stand up in Wyoming. I did stand up in like northern Colorado, and then to like get over to Utah, I drove through Wyoming often. Like, I knew that road pretty well. And it's crazy to think that like a 20-hour drive like felt so chill to me. Like, it's just so pretty out there that it's like healing to drive out there. So when I got into my car accident, I lost. My car was a total loss. and it was like a pile up, and it was on black ice, and it was because the wind hit me so hard through the mountains, and there was no shoulder to pull off. And it was a pretty sunny day, and it was really clear, and it was like it did not look like don't drive. And I've driven through like when I was just in the Snow Creek out here on the East Coast. So for me, it was like just push through, just do it, push through. I had a show coming up in Arkansas, so I had to like drive from Utah to Arkansas, and I only had like one main stop, which would have been in Denver, to like do Uber Eats so that I could anyway. So it's just a long thing, and I know people will disagree with a lot of things I'm saying. They're like, "Oh my God, you're part of the problem." Maybe that's why I got into the car accident. Um, but even though I saw many comedians still, it's just I have a lot of observations. So the whole thing of me working at Fisher kind of is because I had to return back to Maryland. I was able to like rent my own place here, but I had to like restart my life because my car / my home was lost, and I had to like make a decision to go back to Texas or go back to Maryland, and I chose what I thought was the most practical thing, but it turned out to be like, no, this isn't the right thing to do for me. And ultimately, things started opening up, and I ended up back in LA again. And then I worked at a comedy club in LA. So it's whole life synchronicities, but one of the greatest synchronicities today was finding out that it was Thermo Fisher that settled the court case, I guess, with the Lax family or the Lax lineage, because they were part of who took and utilized her cell line, and how much pressure I received. And a huge reason why I left Thermo Fisher was because they really, really wanted me to take Pfizer's vaccine. I never took that vaccine, but they were like on my ass, and it was a male manager that like brought me into the office to like scold me on not taking the vaccine. And then I had to explain to him in the office what endometriosis was, even though he was not a medical professional. The crazy shit that women have to deal with just to try and get their paycheck, And, I always have had prayers where I'm like, hey, if I say no to a job because I feel pressured from people, and my consequences are living in poverty, then I call this God sees it moments, where it's like I'm trying to do the right thing, but at the same time I'm getting punished because I'm doing the right thing. It's the way of the feminine, right? It's what we've had to deal with for centuries. So that was the fight in 2021 and 2022, because eventually I had to fight at another job, which was for an IRB. I worked under an IRB myself, which is a review board committee for research. I was able to work remotely. I thought it would be helpful so I wouldn't have to take the vaccine, and I still had to state my case in front of a board of HR, non-medical professionals, as to why I would not take the vaccine utilizing the Civil Rights Act. And I had friends that were kind of more aligned with like the legal jargon of that send me my formal proceedings. I don't know if that's how the right way of putting it, but to actually go against my company. So my whole professional career, has been me just trying to do the right thing, and then people being angry at that. So welcome in if you're one of those people. And that includes with comedy clubs. That includes, I worked for a well-known comedy club where they started bringing in people to give us COVID tests before our shifts, and that was in Los Angeles. And then eventually I moved into Austin, Texas, thinking it would be better. Austin, Texas is not better because they're anti-woman. The comedy scene there hates women. I will stand 10 toes down on that, because that is something I need to talk about. So it's just cycles. It's patterns and cycles perpetuating one another. And so this is just the surface of my story, but I do want to kind of get into a little astrology today. And so I'm going to look at, I said Bill Hicks. I'm going to look at Bill Gates' natal chart. And I'm looking at astro.com and astro themes. I'm looking at astro themes for my own use, and then I'm putting astro. Let's see how I can do this here. So I'm going to bring up media. Yeah. So if you're on my other live that is going to be on Rumble and YouTube and is on Facebook right now, this is Bill Gates' chart. That is from Astro Theme. And I'm going to personally be looking at astro.com. I'm going to personally be looking at Astro Themes. If you're on X, you're not going to see this, but I'll post a picture of the chart. So the reason why I bring up Bill Gates is because it got me thinking of Henrietta Lacks, and then my whole feeds between Threads and Instagram right now are people who are currently residing in African nations who are having extremely bad medical conditions. And I was thinking about Henrietta Lacks today because of this, because of genetics. And so the power of genetics and the power of epigenetic lineage. So epigenetics is like the lineage of, it could be even, for example, a lot of people think that maybe trauma can create epigenetic imprints. So that's passed down the lineage line. But also the epigenetics studying, like, what is, say, the trauma of heart disease in a certain lineage. So it got me wondering, and again, I am just somebody who I was a manager at Columbia, but like for a very short period of time, but I think it was only a year. And I could have gone further, but I decided to go into, comedy was calling me, and then I just went and traveled around the world to kind of heal my voice. And I had never been allowed to travel like that. So part of my travels got me into New Zealand, into Maori lands, and I'm very grateful for that. And I'll talk about that another day, but I want to talk about Bill Gates. So let me have some more. I'll have some more sips of water. Okay. So Bill Gates, and this is tied into epigenetics and lineages, etc. So October 28th, 1955, 10 p.m. This is what his chart data is. I'm actually going to switch my music. Okay. 10 p.m. Seattle, Washington. So this is like what his public chart is. We don't know if there's any other charts for him. Sometimes people have public charts and then they have other charts. So, and what frequency is this? This is increased mental strength through positive energy vibrations. Just here, take your time, baby. Okay. All right. He is so October 28th, 1955, 10 p.m. He is a Scorpio sun, an Aries moon, a Cancer rising. Birth path for Wood Goat Chinese astrology. Through astrotheme.com, anybody can look at his chart. I also want to preface this by I will never look at Henrietta Lacks's chart because she was abused. Her genetic line was stolen as property. However, I will look at charts of people who are not being ethical, and then I think I'm going to follow my intuition if I have to look at anybody else's chart. So as I start to look, because I do want to look at, I did look at Candace Owens' chart because she just released a documentary about Erica Kirk, and I was like, that's what I thought today I was going to talk about was Candace Owens, Erica Kirk, and Charlie Kirk, and boy, I looked at those charts, and I was like, I just don't know, based on Candace and her religious beliefs, that it would be ethical to look at her chart right now. So I'm going to think about how I'm going to approach that. If I want to do a comparison with Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk, and Erica Kirk, I would 100% look at Erica Kirk's chart on a live stream because I do think she is abusing power based on her chart. And so based on Bill's chart, it's very interesting because I looked at his chart earlier today. I'm sure I've looked at it in the past as well. I don't know if it's been on live stream, but he is I can't use a pointer on my StreamYard, so I'm just going to keep it up in the background. He is a sun in Scorpio of 5 degrees. His moon and his midheaven, so his moon is the highest, like if we think of like a circle, his moon is the highest point on the chart. So when there's 2 points aligned, it's called a conjunction. So his midheaven's at 4 degrees of Aries and his moon is at 8 degrees Aries. It's not like if it were 4 degrees and 4 degrees or 8 degrees and 8 degrees, that's like an exact conjunction. But the thing is that last week on the 20th, with the conjunction of Saturn and Neptune, is taking place around his midheaven. So it's just going to get stronger and stronger as it goes towards 4 degrees of Aries and then towards his moon. So he is not out of the picture in any way, case, or form. And his ascendant is in Cancer, which is ruled by the moon. So his ascendant is based on his lunar energy. And his lunar energy in Aries with his sun in Scorpio, like if this is a good person in the light, boy, is this a good chart for the good of the people. And that's the sad part about this person's chart, is that a Scorpio sun. So I'm going to look at this from a shamanic. I'm stepping back from the normal way that we read charts, because from a tropical Western astrology way of reading, what a philanthropic chart. What a kind, like, good chart to have for the good of the people. So now with the techniques of shamanic astrology, we're assuming, just based on what we know of him in society, that he is coming at this from the masculine perspective. So we want to look at his Mars. So his Mars is what his chart is about in shamanic astrology. Then we want to look at the fuel behind it, which is Scorpio. That's his sun. And then we want to look at his ascendant, which is where he's supposed to, like, his purpose is growing into. So if we were going to reverse this and look at it from a shamanic perspective, He's supposed to grow into the energy of Cancer, which is kind, compassionate, protection. That's what he's supposed to be doing, based on the laws of shamanic astrology. His Mars in Libra makes him a great networker. Having a Mars in Libra is very, I don't want to say cunning, because generally that word would go for Scorpio, right? Scorpio is very cunning, kind of like in the background, a researcher. But with his Mars in Libra, very close to his Mercury in Libra, in his 4th house, he is somebody who is, relationships are very pivotal for him in general. And so if we look at that Mars Mercury energy, relationships are something that are very key to his success. So this is like, so one thing I want to look at, because he is in a very 10th house life, meaning he's in a very public life. If we have public figures, we want to look at their 10th house and their ascendant. So his moon is in his 10th house in Aries, and its moon is generally emotional nature. So his moon is ruled by Mars. His moon is in Aries, ruled by that Mars in Libra, and they're in what is called an opposition. So like a polarity. So if like you look at this and the little dinosaur, here's his moon, here's his Mars, and they're like opposing each other. They're opposite of one another. They're always on a polarity. So, and they're in what's called cardinal signs, which is about leadership. It's about beginnings. It's about the seasons. It's about the equinox and solstice energy in general. So he is here to lead. So when I look at something like that, it's very interesting that, yes, he's in a very self-serving career, Aries, yet his ascendant is supposed to be for the family, Cancer. He does have Uranus in a conjunction to his ascendant. It's just that Uranus is at 2 degrees of Leo. And so there is a lot of chaos. There can be chaos here or confusion, but it's, let me feel it. There can be confusion because it's square his sun in Scorpio. And so with Pluto in Aquarius right now, and this is generational for he was born in like the 50s. He has Pluto by transit in opposition to his Uranus, and this is like something going on for people born in like the mid 50s right now. But with his sun there, square Uranus, with Pluto transit, square his sun. So he has Pluto by transit. So where Pluto is in the sky for everybody, squaring at a 90-degree angle, his sun in Scorpio, and his natal Uranus, it creates what's called a T-square. And so a T-square kind of is like this fixed, held energy, yet Uranus is moving this, and Pluto wants no business. Pluto is unsurfacing. Pluto is transmuting the energy. So we're going to find a lot more out about what Bill Gates has done with the epigenetics, and I would specifically say on the continent of Africa. Because and this is only, and allegedly, I don't know, right? I don't know. But what I'm feeling intuitively, and this is just an intuitive hit, is that he was trying to do what they say, like with that MK stuff, MK, you know what? That he was trying to do it epigenetically in the motherland of Africa. That's what I think happened. I think he was trying to tweak genetic lineages, tribal genetic, indigenous tribal genetic lineages. I think he's a key factor here in this. The one thing I also want to note that I also noted, and I'll keep noting, is he has Jupiter conjunct Pluto in his chart. His Jupiter is at 27 degrees of Leo, and his Pluto is at 28 degrees of Leo. Now, on my couple videos ago, I talked about Peter Thiel having his Jupiter in late degrees of Leo as well. And so this conjunction is generational. So you're going to find it in a generation where you have Pluto, so baby boomers. And with this, we see this on the royal star of Regulus. So late degrees of Leo is royal star of Regulus. This is a fractal pattern. So it's down, like we're seeing this like down to specific people. Donald Trump has his ascendant here. J.D. Vance has his ascendant here. Peter Thiel has his Jupiter here. The royal star of Regulus is often found in the heads of their fields, people who are prominent. Now, because it's Pluto and Jupiter, this is a generation that has this. So it's almost like his chart is selected to hold this generational memory, as opposed to like it's a personal, like if we were seeing Mercury here or an ascendant here or a descendant here, this would be more like, oh, this is for this person. This is more for a collective measure. So he's holding a collective memory as opposed to like it's his energy. I don't know how to put that. He's like a collective, like a package almost. His energy is like a package of something. That's how I'll put it. But when I want to like say this person, if I didn't know who he is, it's interesting because his Jupiter and his Pluto is in a wide square to his Venus and his Saturn. His Venus and his Saturn are conjunct in the sign of Scorpio. So actually, this last eclipse in Aquarius opposed his Regulus point. So it opposed his Jupiter-Pluto point and also squared in a 90-degree-ish angle to his Venus-Saturn in Scorpio. And so his Saturn is his karma, and his karma is in his fourth house of what is home and deep past lives in the past and grandparents and, his physical home and his family, which I think is very interesting because there is a lot about lineage and family in his chart. When we see Scorpio, we're looking at genetics as well. So when I do readings, I do a lot of readings for Scorpios. That is one of the things that's one of the signs I work with a lot, like over the years. And I've been doing readings since 2025. So when Scorpios enter my life, it's usually there's a message here. So for any Scorpios, and this week has been the predominance of a lot of Scorpios reaching out to me, and I want to say I am very, very grateful and I high respect for that. But Scorpios right now are waking up because your lineage path is you're probably feeling everything on an intuitive level because you're a fixed sign. All the fixed signs are being woken up. It's just that Scorpio is the water sign of the fixed sign, so you're feeling it the most. Fixed signs are Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, Aquarius. And so if Scorpios go towards the light, and by the way, Scorpio's journey is not like any other sign's journey. You have to understand the basis of life from every form. And so when I looked at this guy, Bill Gates, if he has his chart going for the light, what amazing things he could do. unfortunately, it's probably the later of that. And so it's unfortunate because he could do so many good things with this chart because he has a generational wound healing chart. And so, where I look at his karma with Venus conjunct Saturn in Scorpio in the house of lineage, it's going to be the women in his life, like his wife and his daughter and, any of the women that were around him that are going to have to say, like, we can't do this anymore. Because his moon in Aries is going to have a very strong highlighted focal point. He might even have a very big news story, 10th house, public house, come out about him, even bigger than what we're seeing right now. So today, let me give you guys the time. Planetary. Today, Mercury went retrograde. So let me just actually, sorry. Mercury, I just want to give the right dates. And I do my live streams because I stream. That's like my thing. And so I don't always have a plan going in. I just have ideas going. Okay, so Mercury retrograde started today. And do we have a time? 1:48 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Mercury went retrograde. And that is at 22 degrees of Pisces and will be retrograding until the 20th of March. And that will be going back to 8 degrees of Pisces. So anytime you hear a planet is retrograde, based upon how the Earth is, the rotation of Earth, it looks like the planet is going behind the Earth. And the energy that creates is kind of this backwards feeling. So anytime you hear any planet is retrograde, you want to look at the planet in your chart. You also want to look at where that planet is in your chart by transit. So you want to look at, for example, Mercury retrograde. You want to look at your Mercury on a very deep level. You also want to look at your third house. And then you want to look at where Mercury is at between 22 and 8 degrees of Pisces to see where the retrograde begins, where it goes back to, and then when it goes direct, where it's going back through. So you're getting a revisit, people, places, and things. Retrogrades bring back, and eclipses bring back people, places, and things, situationships, things like that. Common themes. So say like you have a certain pattern show up. It can be in a person, but it's the same pattern. That's what retrogrades do, to heal that pattern. And if you have retrograde in your natal chart, it can actually be more powerful for you during the retrograde time. So don't be scared of this Mercury retrograde, but it's not a time to make final decisions. It's a time to feel, because it's Pisces, and wait and allow, because we're not going to know everything. And if we think about the nature of the sea and the ocean, which is Pisces realm, and the fact that we just had Neptune, which is the ocean planet, go into Aries, we're not going to know everything quite yet. We're just going to have to let things start to surface themselves. If you think of things being washed up on the beach, that's what's going on. I tried to tell somebody today, if you're ever surfed or boogie boarded, it's kind of like you're getting pulled into the wave. You just have to let yourself take the wave. And then we do have an eclipse next week on the 3rd of March, which is a full moon, which is not, I'm going to be doing live streams or whatever I can do for this because it's not easy. And so, especially water signs, which are Cancer, Pisces, and Scorpio, you're feeling it a lot more. Or if you have any placements in water signs, and fixed signs, Aquarius, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, you have your own thing going on, but also now mutable signs, which is Pisces, Gemini, Virgo, and Sagittarius. You're up now. Your time is now. Right now, you're going to be working through some stuff. So just keep in mind it's a lot. And then cardinal signs, you're going through that Saturn-Neptune conjunction energy. Cardinal signs are Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. So everybody's going through something right now. Nobody's immune to this energy. Changes, human resonance, listening to high frequency stuff. And I'm doing the same thing. Fasting, which is what I've been doing. And I've been actually pretty much making 24-hour fasts almost every day, like within the 24-hour mark of where I started eating. So I've been trying to do that every day. Basically around sundown, I eat, just in respect to every religion and spiritual, everybody's spiritual beliefs. We're all connected. So getting back into the energy of Bill Gates, his karma is with Venus, with the feminines in his life. And if he doesn't protect them, which is what his karma is, Venus conjunct Saturn in Scorpio, he's going to face some repercussions. And that's how it works in this chart. So then I want to look at his other karma, which is his south and north node. So we look at the south node for what's leaving, where the karma drains. We look at the north node to where he's supposed to be going towards. So his south node is in Gemini. Let me look at Donald Trump's chart for a second, because it might be conjunct Donald Trump. Donald Trump has his June 14th, 1946. Where's his sun? What degree is that? 22 degrees of Gemini. And his moon is 21 degrees. Okay. So okay, so basically Bill Gates' south node is conjunct Donald Trump's sun and Donald Trump's north node, right? Yep. And Uranus. Is that? Yep. So Donald Trump has a natal sun, north node Uranus. And what does that sound? I don't know what that sound is. Okay, anyway. And what's his face has his north node conjunct Donald Trump's south node. So that's very interesting. They have a karmic exchange here energetically in their charts. Like if I were to do a synastry chart, which means how the charts align, it means their charts are aligned from south and north node, but reverse of one another. So you're reversing the poles in their charts. And so the karma of Bill Gates actually sits on where Donald Trump's supposed to be going in his life. And the karma of Donald Trump is sitting where Bill Gates is supposed to be going, which is to Sagittarius, which is philanthropy. So very interesting. Sagittarius is the philosopher, the artist, the visual artist. Sagittarius does represent like philanthropy and justice, the judge. So if Libra, where his Mars is, this is Bill Gates, if Libra is the lawyer of the chart of the zodiac, Sagittarius is the judge. So very interesting. And Bill Gates has his north node in his fifth house of creativity. So that's very interesting too, because he's supposed to be doing like more creative, like I wonder if we're going to start, if we're going to start seeing him involved in more art, AI art I saw the other day, or something related to art or visual, something related to visions, bigger, broader visual perspectives. So on the lighter end of this, like if he were to use this chart for like the grander society, this would be like a muralist or somebody who uses their vision for a higher purpose. But we're going to have to see how this plays out because Donald and Bill are connected here. And so I'm going to leave my life here today. That is where I'm going to leave my life. Because I don't know what I'm doing, and also I'm a little bit tired. So I'm going to keep coming back doing lives. If you have any questions for me, you're welcome to ask. I wasn't doing any tarot today just because intuitively I just got the download to not do any tarot, to just look at this chart and then go from there. So I just want to thank you on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, and Substack over here for watching, and thank you so much on X for watching. And I will be back to do more readings, and I will announce the times and dates for that as well. Thank you. My name is Christy. This is Trustyourglitter.